This is for the nerds, this is for the brainiacs, this what we deserve. Go ahead and play it back, you ain't gonna touch me, you not gonna do nothing, you are not above me, I bet you wish you was me, I know it, I know.
Well, there's an old saying, the only thing you need to play this game is a chip and a chair. But to sit down and win against the best, you need a whole lot more. Poker actually isn't about winning and losing. Poker's about making the right decision. You gotta know when to call, when to fold, and when to push all in. When luck shuts the door, you gotta come in through the window, and that's where the skill comes in. You gotta have the courage to bluff, but you gotta swallow that pride. You gotta throw your hand away when you know you're beat. When you're really on your game, you can look your opponent in the eye, and you know if you've got him, or you know if he's got you. It doesn't matter how good you are, everything can change when those cards are in the air. We don't stop playing because we get old. We get old because we stop playing. That's poker, folks.
It's with a heavy heart that we announce the passing of Doyle Brunson. He was a beloved Christian man, husband, father, and grandfather. There'll be much more to say over the coming days to honor his legacy. Please keep Doyle and the family in your prayers. May he rest in peace. That's a statement that was passed along by Brian Bosba from the Brunson family. Our thoughts and prayers obviously go out to Todd, Pam, and all the other surviving members. Very unfortunate day for our industry. Tough one. It's weird. I was, chatting with a lot of the OGs, so to speak, reaching out, trying to get people to call in, kind of give their past history with Doyle. And I think the first sentiment every one of them shared was, we knew this was coming at some point, but it's still so difficult to kind of palate because the guy just seemed like he was immortal. And in a lot of ways in our industry, he will be immortalized, you know? It's my first experience with poker as a whole, pretty much, or at least No Limit Hold'em, was Super System. I mean,
same.
Yeah,
At least
for
the,
sure.
the second one, yeah.
That was the first poker book I ever bought.
you had the hardback.
I had, yeah, I have the real one.
The
Not the Super
one from
System
Rounders.
2, the one from Rounders, except mine was black and not gray, but it was the hardback cover. When I got that, it was like holding the Bible.
I used to read it on the
really
bus on the way to Atlantic City.
Yeah, I read that book cover to cover probably a dozen times, maybe more. It was like ritual. I mean, we didn't have all of these tools available to us when we were coming up, so like that was the only guidance my generation, the moneymaker boom generation, really had. And I must have read that book cover to cover no fewer than a dozen times. Certainly Doyle's chapter on No Limit, hundreds of times. It became ritual where when I was grinding online, I would have Super System in one hand and Rounders on the TV in the background. And I can remember vividly, I was playing like small stakes party poker sit and goes and things like that. There was like one particular player where I remember he just like ripped all in with an open ender or something like that. And I remember typing in the chat like, "Oh, somebody else has read Super System." It's like, we just, aggression is not inherent to anybody in this game. Like risk aversion is pretty, natural. And I think Super System really turned that on its head, where it was like, look, you don't just have to flop the nuts in order to want to put all the money in the middle.
Right.
There are all these other hands that are kind of worth a lot. And sometimes you can get people to fold.
Right. That was, I think the big part was like, it was the aggression, but it was everybody else is not playing this way. And they are all risk averse and they are going to fold.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It was like the first introduction to having a master class on how to bluff, how to win pots uncontested. He was the original redliner.
He was. He really
Imagine.
was. Yeah. Man, I would love to see his red line chart like back in the and they were like
1971.
Yeah, rounding through Texas. Oh my God.
It's a weird juxtapositioning to be the most aggressive player at the table who is willing to just smash it all in with a draw or whatever, but then at the same time call ace queen a trouble hand.
Yep.
But it's like, I get it, right? Because, think about it. It really truly is like one of the best beginner books when you think about it, even maybe still to this day, because it really does sum up how low stakes no limit hold'em is played, right? Ace Queen is a bit of a trouble hand at like 1-3 where stacks are kind of shallow and people tend to be closer to the top of their range when all the money goes in.
Right.
So it's like, if you can carve out these ways of having the low cards, the idea of like they'll never see it coming because they're all playing high cards,
Right.
type of
Suited
thing.
connectors, baby.
Man, he got an entire generation to overvalue 7 high. Just all of us massively punting.
5-4 suited was your favorite hand.
It still is.
It still is. Yeah,
It still
exactly.
is. What a great hand. I mean,
Yeah,
it's straight
mine
flush
was
ones.
6-5 suited, so I just always had you dominated.
Right. Well, that's the tortoise in you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Some
I
of
don't
us
want to
are-
get crazy with 5 high, but 6 high.
Right.
Let's
Yeah.
go.
Some of us are trying to come from behind, Yesterday, obviously, as the internet tends to do, people began to memorialize Doyle, and we saw some serendipitous moments, one including Bencb, who is at the final table of a 10K online. Whoops. Sorry, that's on me. And he played a hand dedicated to Doyle with the old 10 Dewey under the gun.
You know what?
You got to. You got to.
Then he gets aces the very next hand.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
As he should.
Yep.
Rewarded. There was another hand in Triton. They had a moment of silence for Doyle, and immediately thereafter, this like almost feels scripted.
It was because it was the suits. It was the 10 deuce of spades. You're talking
No.
about Patrick and tennis?
Well, that's not why it happened specifically. He had 2.5 big blinds,
Okay.
and he's in the big blind
Yeah.
with 10 deuce suited.
Right.
Gets to see a flop. I think he started the hand with 3 big blinds, whatever. Calls him in raise, sees a flop, and it comes like 9-8 deuce or something like that. Gets it in versus jacks, and then just drills the 10 on the river.
Yeah.
It didn't work out for Patrick, but that hand specifically,
Right.
did. Very, very serendipitous. It's nice whenever poker kind of presents these moments to pay homage. I never had the pleasure of playing with Doyle. Have either of you?
No.
Nope.
No,
Never.
not.
I bought him dinner at Applebee's once.
Is that actually true?
Yeah.
You bought him
What?
dinner at
many,
Applebee's?
many years ago. I was sitting at the bar.
Okay.
I was with somebody I was dating at the time, and I was just kind of fanboying because I saw him on the there's like a little stairway that goes up towards the bar, and he was sitting there, I believe, with his wife. And I didn't have a bunch of money at the time, but I thought, man, this would be really cool to be able to buy his dinner for him. So I bought his dinner. He actually came up to the bar and said thank you. I took my picture with him. I was looking for the picture too, but lost in the ethos. But yeah, super nice guy.
Wow, that's awesome.
That's awesome.
I love that he's just chilling at Applebee's, getting some.
Him and Bob Bright have a lot in common.
Hey, man, you don't have to eat fine dining every night. Well,
That's true.
Applebee's kind of is. I love a good Applebee's once in a while.
God, my little brother used to love Applebee's. Not a fan of it.
First time I ever saw Doyle, it was my first trip ever to Vegas. So 2005, and it came out for the World Series. We're going to play one event. I think it was like a 2K or something. I actually came up with like the Johnstown boys. So it was like, I think Justin and John Catula, Chris Hartwiger, maybe John Ford was there. And it was crazy because it was like, you know, the height of like the poker boom was just starting. And then, you know, we just getting into poker, like seriously. And we just start seeing all the legends, right? There's Negreanu and there's, you know, all the people you would see on TV. And then I'm like, where's Doyle? Like I want to see Doyle. And then before you know it, here he comes zipping around in his scooter at the Rio. And it was like magical. Like, it's just like, oh my God, that's the greatest poker player to ever live. Like, it was just wild, just seeing him in person for the first time. But no, I never got the chance to actually play with him. It's been nice to give him some of my chips.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure he would take.
There's a handful of people that were like kind of larger in life the first time I saw them. I remember the first time I saw Helmuth, he was like wearing a black trench coat, like off in a corner somewhere looking like Batman. And I'm just like, this guy is on a whole nother level. But Doyle had a very different presence about him because I think it's funny. I got asked this question in an interview this past week about the airball wrap up and whatnot. And the question was like, who are your poker influences? And I kind of like dodged it a bit saying, well, you know, our era doesn't really have that because, you know, we kind of grew up in a time of TV poker where everybody was more of a personality than somebody to emulate. So it was more that we wanted to trade places with them than to actually like, you know, mimic what it was that they were doing.
Yeah.
And a lot of the mimicry that was taking place was all online. So, you know, you'd watch the guys who were crushing, you'd see the Mormons and the Boosted Jays and the oh man, Kevin Sauls of the world. It'd just be like, oh, I want to be an aggro. You know what I mean? Like that's the thing to do. But the truth of the matter is, like, Doyle did have a big influence in how I personally built my game, right? Like, again, Super System was the first book that I read. It had a major influence over me. And there was a point where if I were watching televised poker, I found myself rooting for him.
Yeah.
It's hard not to, right? It's like watching Babe Ruth somehow still in the league way past his prime. And but the difference was that like Doyle was able to compete pretty well in that era of pre-Black Friday. So I think that it's easy to forget 20 years removed how much of an impact he had. And taking that even like a step further, I don't know that any of us are here, Moneymaker included, right? Like when you think of the butterfly effect that Brunson had over all of this, it's really pretty remarkable, right? He got a lot of flack for writing that book.
Oh, from the pros.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
I truly don't know if we have the Moneymaker effect without Super System.
Right. And I think the original title was like How I Made $1 Million Playing Poker.
That's another book, I think.
I think Brian's right.
Oh, okay. It's just
I'm only basing it off of what somebody said in Twitter Spaces last night. But
I'm almost positive that was like the original title, and then you know people want to read that. They're like, what, $1 million playing a card game?
Yeah.
Right. And then it just opened a lot of people's eyes to poker, and then the World Series, and the World Series just kept becoming bigger and bigger and bigger, and then you know, like you said, like maybe Moneymaker never enters if it wasn't for Doyle like shining a light on this industry, and then Moneymaker comes in and obviously wins it, and then it goes on to be this other huge industry that it is today.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much more to that book than just strategy too, right? Like he speaks so much about the old school way of being a rounder and how dangerous it was, what the lifestyle, like it really was an embodiment of the tone that I think rounders kind of set with look at this cool alternative lifestyle that comes with a lot of seediness and danger. And I think that, you know, Doyle probably helped pave the way to help normalize this as a potential career and something that the mainstream media would actually want to get involved in. I mean, when we look back on it, ESPN covered the main event prior to the whole card cam.
Oh yeah,
right?
for sure.
But it didn't really blow up until the Varconi year, where Helmuth shaved his head.
Mm-hmm. He said, "Yeah, if Varconi wins, I'm going to shave my head."
Right.
And he did.
Right. So, I'd love to hear from Phil, and I know that he and Dewey Tomko are doing a tribute later on this afternoon to Doyle. I think it will actually air like right after we're finished. But without Helmuth, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like it's this effect where it's like Helmuth at the time was very young and probably never even gets the opportunity to become a champion if he doesn't have an influencer like Doyle to normalize it.
I mean, Doyle Brunson was such a big influence that he was on the top headlines of ESPN today.
Yeah.
He's all around influence on the game, and I don't know.
Yeah, the Pat McAfee show shouted him out. Like, he's just one of those names that I think people. He's just synonymous with Texas Hold'em, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that like he's from, I believe he's from either Texas or Oklahoma originally.
Texas.
So he's like from that area where the game originated.
The Texas Dolly.
Yeah, he was. Oh yeah, of course. Duh. And the things that had to happen for this to be the case too are very like serendipitous, right? Like he was an athlete who got drafted by the Lakers and was going to play professional basketball. So had it not been for the injury, he probably never goes down this path either. Shout out to Lee Jones for the super chat. He said, "Super system, including Caro's correct math, totally changed the game. I have original hardback. It's $50. Doyle was seminal in all of it." Yeah,
It's really funny because I almost mentioned that that when you said I had the hardback, and I still remember I paid $50 for it. That's right. Yeah, exactly.
I have a feeling the price is going to go up.
Price is probably going to go up. But yeah, I like waiting for that book. Like once I ordered it online and just like back then I don't know how long it took, probably a couple weeks to get it right.
Yeah,
just like waiting and waiting and waiting.
Yeah,
when it came in the mail, it was like the greatest thing ever.
Yeah, it's I have so many copies of it, and I was trying to find one for the show today. I couldn't find any.
I feel like there's a Super Systems too right downstairs.
Probably.
Oh, there actually is. I think,
yeah, there probably is. We have a few people calling in, but being that they're poker players and timing is not their specialty, we're just kind of waiting. So we hope to hear from Lon McEachern today. We hope to hear from Boosted J. Waiting to hear back from Durr. He volunteered to call in. So hopefully we're going to hear from these guys at some point. If not, we're just going to keep shooting the shit about our favorite memories of Doyle, even though we don't have firsthand experience. I did meet him in passing probably like 4 or 5 different times, but much like Ivy, there's no way he could pick me out of a lineup.
Right.
There were just a handful of times that I was playing the cash game, the no limit game in Bobby's room, and they were in there playing some sort of mix. One day, it was actually pretty recent, man, maybe like 2 weeks ago. He came in, I want to say Seaver was in there too, and maybe one other, but the game just like never started. They just like played Chinese for an hour and then left. And it's funny because it's an ongoing joke in no limit games when somebody's like buried or whatever, and they're like, I have to go to the bathroom, and they get up. We joke as they're leaving so they can hear and say, you guys just want to play Chinese till he gets back. Like it seemed like that was literally what they were doing, like just playing Chinese, waiting for the whale to come.
Yep.
And he never showed up.
Yep.
But yeah, he was grinding all the way down to the end, as best I could tell. He reminds me of like Paterno in that regard, where it was just like you can't take the game away.
Right.
It's like the lifeblood of what's keeping him going.
Yeah, of course. That's he's lived, breathed poker for probably 80% of his life.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like,
I mean, he was 89 turning 90, so maybe even more, to be honest. I'm sure he was in his teens when he first started gambling.
Yeah.
I'm good.
I just hope I'm at the table, living life at 85, 86, 87.
Yeah.
Playing the game that I love.
Right.
It's funny. Like, I try to put myself in. I think it's impossible to look ahead, right? I think it's impossible. I think back to when I was a teenager, the idea or the notion of becoming 40 was just impossible to conceptualize. Everybody seems so old. at that age. And now that you're 40, you don't feel that far removed from 18,
Right.
but you feel so far away from 80.
Yeah.
Right. So it's really to know what life is like as you progress down that path. Right now, as a 40-year-old, like the last thing on earth I think I would want to be doing when I'm 80 is gambling. But then you like kind of revisit it a bit, and it's just like, well, maybe that's like exactly what you want to do.
Exactly. Yeah.
You can't take it with you.
Right.
You know, what else are you going to do to occupy your time? You're not going to change the world when you're 80.
And it's
Right.
definitely like the only like competitiveness like you can get out. Like it's like
So speak for
Yeah,
yourself. I'm going to
you're-
be in a strongman competition or
Yeah.
some shit.
You're not going to be. Listen, Burke,
Whatever.
when you're 85, you're not going to be on that pickleball court.
That's what you think.
yo, how old was what's his name?
Who?
The guy that played pickleball with us.
Oh,
my God.
Tom.
Yeah,
Tom was old, man.
It was like at least 80.
We named the
Really?
court after him.
Yeah.
Nice.
he retired and moved to Seattle.
He didn't retire. He's still playing pickleball, I'm sure.
Yeah, he probably is. It's a little rainy up there, so he might not get in as many matches. But yeah.
That's where it originated.
Oh yeah, you're right. It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, the origin story is very, very weird, but makes so much sense. Thank you to Daniel Stryker. She says, Burke, trivia, a lot of people don't know. Doyle wrote the precursor, how I made over $1 million playing poker, first edition, first printing. Okay, so maybe Conrad is right,
Gotcha.
that they're two different books?
Maybe.
Or, wait,
I'm not sure.
yeah.
I'm still confused.
I'm not sure either. I can't remember who it was speaking in Spaces yesterday, but it seemed like he was
Like, I think that was the book, and then maybe he turned that into Super System.
right?
Something. Yeah.
Are they both still available for purchase?
I do not know.
Would be interesting to find out. What do I want to? I wanted to bring up his influence over Poker After Dark, which I find to be pretty unique, actually. Right. So at the time, he was already a staple on high stakes poker. Obviously, he was the godfather and still remains to be so. But that was kind of an interesting relationship, right? Because he didn't have any ties to Full Tilt. And I don't know what the backstory is. I'm sure that there is one. I hope that we can get somebody up here who can clarify. But it seems a little bit unique that he didn't have anything to do with Full Tilt.
Well, he had Doyle's room.
Was it
maybe.
already running? That was the part I couldn't figure out.
I think it might have been.
In my mind, it came after,
Yeah,
but maybe not because was Doyle's room up and running during the 2006 UGIA?
Yeah.
I can't remember. It was such Wild Wild West back then.
I
There was
know.
1,000 sites.
Oh, there really was.
Caribbean
Yeah.
poker, mansion poker. I mean, there were so many rooms. Conrad, you would have loved 2006, man. You could just
it was wild.
you could bonus whore over like 1,000 different sites.
You really could, yeah.
Greg
People made livings.
Greg
doing
made
that.
$100,000 just through bonus whoring in 2005.
That's absurd.
He was on like I think he was on like something like 24 different skins, and he would just get people to sign up. He would have like a percentage of their rake back for life, and then he also would have rake back on those sites.
And
So
would
he'd just grind like one table per
Yeah.
site, get all this rake back, playing like 50 cents a dollar,
Pretty sick.
just make infinite money. It was wild. Yeah, there's a story behind Doyle's room that I'm not familiar with enough to tell. But I know that there was something about it where I think he was offered an obscene amount of money right before Black Friday and turned it down. And then, Black Friday happened and ultimately he had to close shop. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken,
It was created in 2004.
okay, so he was around during that act. Okay, that makes sense why he wasn't a part of Full Tilt. Full Tilt came much after.
Did Doyle's room turn into something?
I'm almost positive it's the WPN network now.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, but I'm not positive. So I think that was ultimately their exit. But I believe he had like a 9-figure exit on, or not 9-figure, an 8-figure exit on the table just before, and either they were like mulling it over or he had passed on it, and then Black Friday happened shortly thereafter. Which, he did okay for himself, but
Yeah. Somebody said Doyle's room got seized.
Yeah.
And then he cut ties with it.
Yeah. That makes sense.
I was at Cake.
Yeah, that's pretty wild.
Okay, so Lee Jones said, I was at Cake and Doyle's room was part of the Cake network.
Okay, I remember Cake.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that must have been one of the skins. There were other. Was Locke a part of Cake also?
I think so.
It might have been.
I have a feeling.
It's
I
so
can't
hard to
remember.
remember what was affiliated with what because, like you said, there were so many of them.
Yeah.
Hold on. The Cake.
Pretty sure Locke was part of Cake.
Yeah, I don't remember. I just remember everybody trying to survive post Black Friday, and like then all of those funds ultimately getting seized.
Okay, so it was Doyle's room, players only, sportsbook.com, and Cake Poker.
Okay, so not Locke.
It doesn't look like it.
Yeah.
Unless they took Lock off because of whatever happened off the site.
No, it was probably its own.
But you were saying Poker
But
After
yeah,
Dark.
anyway, sorry. All the way back to Poker After Dark. So now that makes the story even more interesting, right? Because Poker After Dark was a show that was built by Full Tilt. The entire show was just driven by ad dollars by Full Tilt. And I'm not positive that High Stakes Poker was aligned with Poker Stars. It might have just been driven by all of the online money of advertising, but Full Tilt specifically was owned, Poker After Dark was specifically owned by Full Tilt. Not only did he, play on the show, but he became a staple of the opening, which you guys saw to open this podcast, where it was him narrating the opening. And I don't know who wrote that. I don't know how much involvement he had in the quotes or anything, but it's one of the most memorable.
So good.
1.5 minutes of poker content that I think any of us have seen, to the degree where High Stakes Poker is the more notable of the two shows, I think. But that intro is so much more memorable that in my mind, when I think back to that era, I always gravitate towards Poker After Dark first and foremost, just because of like the way that the cast was so heavily relied on and highlighted, right? You saw all of the Full Tilt guys that, not only did they play on the show, but they were in the intro, B-roll and whatnot. And then to have Doyle narrate it, it's just like, it just sticks out in your craw to the degree where like sometimes I would even think like, oh yeah, like that was a segment out of High Stakes Poker. No, it wasn't. Right. It was the intro to Poker After Dark, which is a little bit, it's a little strange, I guess, because it kind of demonstrates how willing everybody was to work together back then, at least to some degree. Yeah. Right? Doyle was running a competing room, doesn't care. He comes on, he plays the show. And they were cutthroat back then. I know for quite some time, if you were a Stars ambassador, you weren't allowed to play on Full Tilt. A lot of them had like these secret accounts that nobody knew about. Because, screen names would become very wide known back then, the same as they are now. Yeah. And vice versa. I don't know if it went the same way where Full Tilt pros weren't allowed to play on Stars, but I know that like oftentimes they would just have like these anon accounts where they would be able to play back and forth, and you would see the nosebleeds kind of crop up with some of these random scream names. It's like, is that D-Nags? Might be D-Nags. All right, so it looks like we have our first caller. We're going to go ahead and bring it in. Here's some actual firsthand accounts from Doyle, or about Doyle.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hello.
What's up, man?
What up?
I'm in a poker game.
Of course you are.
Of course.
Of course you are. Why wouldn't you be?
Why can't I can't see you guys.
Oh.
That's cool.
I don't know. You should be able to. We were just talking about Poker After Dark and the influence that Doyle had. I know that's where you probably played the majority of your time with him. Maybe not, though, actually. Why don't you fill us in a little bit about what that was like?
No, I played more with Doyle and Bobby's. I played with him a lot there. I think when I think I was one of the first guys to go from online to live and do it right. And I played with Doyle quite a bit, even new games and stuff. And probably for the first time 10 years or a little more ago. And I remember I was pretty surprised how sharp he was. Guy was a legend,
Did you play any televised poker with him?
For sure. I mean, I don't know what exactly, but for sure a bunch. Yeah.
So you have to have heard some sort of stories. Like, I mean, look, I've gotten to play a lot of private games, and I think my version of Doyle would be Bobby Baldwin, where I just get to hear all of the old stories of the past, and I'm always awed how gangster this game used to be. Do you have any that you could share about Doyle?
Yeah, I mean, I think Doyle and Bobby, there were sometimes they would share some stories. I want to think a minute. I don't remember off the top of my head because I don't want to like get details wrong and stuff.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
I personally, I heard a bunch from Bobby also, but there were definitely sometimes I had heard from both of them, like when we're in a game and telling some stories, and there was some crazy shit back in the day.
I think every story that I heard from Bobby that either was just about him or involved Doyle as well, always had a gun.
Yeah, right.
Like 100% of them just had a gun involved.
Well, I think Doyle faked a heart attack twice or something for
my
robberies.
God.
I don't remember.
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, I think
But
there's like
two
three.
times-
Yeah.
Maybe three. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I think there's like three notable stories of him talking about getting followed home and robbed. And I think you're right about the faking a heart attack, as they happen like much later in his life.
Yeah, I think two of them. I think he had said he faked a heart attack. I didn't try to ask every detail because it
Sure.
wasn't the most pleasant story. But yeah, I mean, there was some crazy shit back in the day.
What were some of those Bobby Room games like? Because I know that it's a mix between playing, really high stakes and also like really high props on the side.
Yeah, I mean, I played props with them occasionally, but I generally didn't play props. But I know there were sometimes Doyle played new games, and I was surprised. I mean, at the time he's probably in his 80s, right? Most of the time I played with him, he was pretty fucking sharp, man.
Yeah.
It was kind of surprising.
Yeah, that's what everyone would say about him. Like no matter, like up until the end, he was still had his wit. He was still very sharp. He still could play the game well.
You guys can sweat with me.
Okay, here we go.
How small is this game?
It's 500.
Oh, okay.
Normally I
So,
wouldn't answer that, but it's not huge, so I can say.
He knows we're not on a delay, right?
What's that?
I said, we're not on a delay, right?
That's okay. Yeah, I don't think any of them's trying to watch this.
doing it. All right, good.
Yeah, nobody watches this podcast.
when was the first time that you actually got a chance to meet and play with Doyle? There's gone into the dirt there.
Nitty fold.
Brutal.
I'm not sure. Probably when I was like 22, 23.
And it was cash games?
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember the first because there were the first times I played with him was the first times I was playing like big live poker going from online.
Right. Yeah.
So it wasn't there was a ton of memorable experiences at the same time. So I remember playing with Doyle around those times. I just don't specifically remember like, oh, this was the first time kind of thing.
And was it all like mostly like high stakes no limit, or were you dabbling in mixed games also?
A lot of the games I was playing for the first time in Bellagio were PLO.
Okay.
That was when like Sammy Farah was playing a lot. So we'd have some no limit, some half and half, but a lot of it was PLO.
Can you touch on like the ambiance in the room when Doyle was in there when you guys were playing? Like,
hang on, I got it. I think, did you see Christy Arnett's story
Yeah.
that she posted? I think I saw some moments like that of Doyle being quite class. I also, saw him tilted at least once or twice. Him and Ivy would always give each other shit. It was very funny. Yeah, I don't know. I'd want to, if I'm not in the poker game, I'll think about how to answer that more
That's
proper.
fair.
But yeah, I mean, I definitely saw a lot of times that the Chrissy Arnett type story that he was like gracious like that,
Yeah, to catch everybody up on what that's.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, to catch everybody up on what that story was, basically her first year as a reporter, she pulled him aside, was super nervous, was struggling with the audio. and one of his friends was trying to shoo him away to go do a bigger media interview. And he just looked at her and said, "Go on, sweetheart. Take all the time that you need." And it's like that's kind of just that sweet understanding of somebody who's clearly new to the game and facing an intimidating figure. It's a nice way to like calm the situation, and I think he was probably pretty good about that. Where actually maybe you don't want to disclose your location. But are you playing a lot these days?
No, I'm at Triton.
Oh, okay,
We're
okay.
in Cyprus.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. Are you traveling a lot for these?
They did a thing, like a Doyle thing. I didn't get to see it yet. Wasn't in the room, but they did a tribute thing apparently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I saw Antonius doubled up with 10 deuce right after the moment of silence.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't see that. That's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, I should have tried to think of a good story or two. The best stories I have are Ivy and Doyle needling each other in props. And then, because I didn't play, like a lot of times they'd be playing the other game or something. And I think I've asked both of them at the table, like, have you been needling each other like this for, 10 years, 20 years, whatever? I think the answer from both of them is yes. But
that's perfect.
Anyway, I should get back to my game, but yeah.
All right, yeah, we appreciate the call in. Thank you so much.
Yep.
Good luck.
Hey, Tom.
It's good to hear from someone from our generation who got a lot of experience with him. Coming in next, I have to DM him. Hold on. But we're going to bring in Boosted J, who's actually in the process of getting a screenplay filmed about Doyle's life. And I can't type. So we're going to bring him in next. We're going to hear a little bit about like what it went into researching the project. Any stories that he may have about Doyle firsthand, and then what we can expect from the screenplay. Get some details out of all of that. There's just a DJ, huh?
He's just always playing.
There's the fucking greatest, man. Yeah. He's just out there. He calls in from 500.
By the way, he voluntarily messaged me and said, "I'll call in about
Doyle." but he, like, Durr is going to be like Doyle, right? When Durr is going to be at that table when he's 89.
Oh, for sure.
For sure, gambling, just living it up, just trying to
calling in Twitter Spaces,
bluffing people. And, yep. Calling into Twitter Spaces at 89. If Twitter Spaces are still going on 50 years from now, I don't know.
Yeah, it's funny because I think Daniel's a lifer, but I think his experience is obviously very different than Doyle's.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's kind of had the limelight. The majority of his career was protected, wasn't bringing guns to games and stuff like that. I think there might be a little bit on the other side of that.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to bring in Justin Boosted J right now.
What's up, man? How are you?
Good. How are you, man?
Pretty good. Just sitting here by the beach.
Tough life, man. Tough life.
Mm-hmm.
What's nice out there?
Doing Zoom meetings. Although you guys have the not so good background, the other backgrounds in front of me.
No, that's fine. So I think there was a little bit of confusion whenever we had heard about this project that you're working on, because I think that there's also an audiobook and then possibly a documentary style film that are both going to be released sooner than later. And in my mind, you are tied to one of those, but it actually sounds like you're doing a full, like, blown screenplay.
Yeah. By the way, nice cat.
That's Chauncey.
That's he's just here for the views.
Yep.
Yeah, he looks like a mini lion sitting on the desk. Like that's what I'm picturing. Like if you had like a mini lion, that'd be pretty amazing. Which he kind of looks like.
I love it.
Yeah. It's true that there's at least those projects happening. I'm not involved in either of those. I'm not involved in the documentary or the audiobook. I've got a lot of videos of the audiobook of Doyle, recording them on my phone because, Brian Ballsberg, Doyle's agent, was texting them to me, and Doyle was actually sending them to me too, just for like more reference points for developing the script. So yeah, we're doing a movie, like a it's a biopic. So it's not a documentary. It's, if people don't know, it's when, you know, there's an actor who plays Doyle, and, you know, it's, you know, all actors, and it's just based on his life. And there's some pretty good things that are happening with it, and nothing that not too much, at least, that can be revealed yet. But there's a script already written, and you know, I kind of call it, for people who don't really know Doyle or his background, you know, I kind of call it Forrest Gump meets Casino.
That's quite the blend.
I'm in for that. Those are two of my favorite movies. So.
Is this something that touches on like his early years?
Yeah. So, without going too much into it, is yeah, kind of that's where the Forrest Gump element comes from. It is, you know, it starts with him in Texas, and then you know, he graduates to Vegas, and you know, that's mostly it, but it's kind of split between Texas and Vegas is where it's set. And you know, I've played a lot with Doyle. You know, of course, I haven't really played poker in a long time now. It's been like 7 or even almost 8 years since I've really played poker. And but I played with him a lot. But you know, you hear even someone who plays with him quite a bit, like I did, like you hear about, you just like, oh, Doyle's got tons of stories. So like, you know, your imagination kind of goes wild, and you're thinking about like, oh, what are these stories? So like you think about what they might be and what they might not be. And all I can tell you is that the stories are everything that you think, and then everything else that you also don't think. It's like insane. It's insane how many stories happen to this guy. And, you know, for various reasons, I kind of, you know, I think I was in a unique place to understand it, despite not growing up in the 50s in Texas. I think, you know, there's reasons why, but I really did. And, you know, it's about Doyle's kind of, you know, search for meaning in some ways, and of course how much his family meant to him. And you know, I think it's really worth. I think it's really a movie worth living. And the one other thing I'll say is that I think that we're never going to see another Doyle again. Not just in poker, obviously. That's obvious in poker, but like in life, you know, where like technology has gotten us, and how the world's changed, culture's changed. We're never going to see someone spanning the age from his time period to now. We live in the high-tech world. You know, our generation, Matt, I think you're about my age. I'm 35, but you know,
I wish.
Are you're a little older?
I'm 41.
Okay, which is not bad. But you know, I think we're really part of a very interesting generation that will be telling our grandkids and quadruple great grandkids, since maybe we'll live that long to meet them. And I think we'll have a lot of interesting stories to tell them about people like Doyle, who, what was that even like? That's like prehistoric times. I mean, to our great grandkids, it's almost prehistoric times to us. I mean, can we really imagine what the 1940s or 50s in Texas is, with like Doyle playing with like pimps and drug dealers and like, you know, robbers and all kinds of stuff. I mean, it was
like the Wild West. Yeah.
Yeah. His backstory is almost like folklore. Was that a little bit of the impetus behind you wanting to do this, or like what inspired you to want to make this movie?
It's kind of funny. I have a note on my phone of all the different movie ideas that I have to make. And the list is pretty deep. I think it's like almost 100 deep of ideas. And I think about 5 or 6 years ago, I kind of like threw Doyle's life on there. And I kind of thought, even though like I kind of know Doyle, and I was never like super close with him or anything like that, but we played a good amount together, you know, in different games and stuff. And we were always friendly, except for when he got a little grumpy, I guess. But then he would just order some ice cream and cheer up, I think. But you know, I just lost my train of thought. I put Doyle's name on the list, and I thought, okay, there's no way, probably, I'm not even going to try to talk to Doyle about this, because if he wanted to do it, he would have like already done it.
Right.
So I kind of just like kept that on there. And then, you know, about a year ago, I'm pretty close friends with a pretty legendary game. I don't speak to too many people, honestly, in poker and gambling too much anymore. I've got, you know, some friends that I keep, and but I don't speak to too many because I'm just not immersed in that world. But one of the people who I do speak to is not so much a poker player, but he's kind of a legendary gambler himself. Is Mike Svobodny, and it goes by Svobo. And he won like the backgammon world championship. He's got insane stories. I mean, not like Doyle's in a way, but kind of like Doyle's in a way. He's a pretty interesting person. If you don't know who he is, he's pretty interesting. And I'm pretty close with him, and he just called me up one day, and forgot exactly how he had the idea. I think he met with Jack and Doyle or something. He's pretty close to Jack, and I think they had the idea, and you know, he brought me back into it. So like Doyle and I reconnected, and you know, I've got a great partner in movies, and you know, we just made it happen. It happened pretty fast, actually. My partner and I were like in Vegas for the day, like, I don't know, the following week or something. And then we decided what we were going to do. You know, Brian Ballsworth was a big part of it, and is. And yeah, it was that's basically the story of how it happened. So was it an impetus? I mean, yeah, the original idea was one that I thought was worth telling, but it's even better. It's even better than I ever hoped or thought that it would be, actually, since diving in.
Yeah, I think that you know, I can speak for the majority of the poker community and just say that we're kind of desperate for this, right? We've gotten to an era where we've lost our heroes, and it seems like that TV era is where it kind of cuts off, right? The D-Negs, the Ivies, the Doyles, and doing things that will, I guess, highlight them in a specific way for the next generation, right? Like, I think about Landon, who isn't here today, but he has no experience with Doyle whatsoever. He's probably seen maybe 1 or 2 episodes of High Stakes Poker that he was on, and like, that's that. He has no idea what poker was like pre-internet, what poker was like back in the day. And, you know, to a lesser degree, neither do we, but Brian and I have played in underground games with hitmen and pimps and hustlers and gamblers and bookies and everything of the sort, right? I feel like the newer generations are so sheltered from that being able to tell this story of how much struggle he actually went through in order to get the game to where it's at today, and, you know, how much thanks and gratitude we owe him for building this space for us to all be in, is a story really worth telling.
Yeah. I hear everything that you're saying. You know, that makes sense. And I saw someone tweeted or something. I saw, I think yesterday, is, you know, he did that for like, you know, 70 years or whatever, which is pretty incredible to really be committed to anything to 70 years. I mean, we're living in the day and age where everything happens so fast. Yeah.
Before we get you out of here, is there any one story in particular you have to tell about Doyle?
I don't have any amazing stories myself with him, unfortunately. You know, all of them were at the table for the most part. I mean, you know, yeah, I think the best stories are going to be in the movie.
Okay, that's fair. That's a good cliffhanger to leave us with.
Excited to see this.
Yeah, we're all looking forward to it. Appreciate you so much for calling in. Thanks a lot.
Cool. Hey, Gordo.
Hey, what's up, man?
Nice to see you. I'm gonna jump off. I hope you're well.
Yeah, likewise. See you, bud.
All right, Gordo. I gotta hear it from the horse's mouth, because you your experience with Doyle on Twitter really opened my eyes to his sense of humor. At least I hope it was his sense of humor, unless he truly hated you. But either way, we're here for
it
it.
Was a sense of humor. No, it was. He's a really funny guy. And yeah, our little Twitter interactions obviously were good. He was the best to play poker with of anyone I've ever played.
How did all of that come to be where he started needling you via Twitter? Also, by the way, respect to the man in his mid to late 80s getting a part of the Twitter meme game.
Oh, dude, that selfie that he sent, by the way, I was dead when I received that. I love that it has the the famous Bobby's Room photo in the background, so you know exactly where he's sitting.
Right,
It's just
right.
so good. Yeah, I don't know. He was sharp as can be up until his last days. Obviously, he had the hang of Twitter. He had the hang of gambling. Yeah, I don't know. He'll be missed. Pretty sad day.
How often did you play with him? I assume often enough that he thought you were a mark.
Yeah, definitely. We played. There was a period of like 4 years where I basically came to Vegas and played, the higher stakes WSOP events, and then otherwise just played cash and bobbies. And then I think the way that our sort of rivalry started was I was a little green in mixed games when I jumped in, and I went on a pretty big rush to start off. And Doyle was a little ornery about that and let me know both in person and on Twitter that I was the mark. And so yeah, just that kind of relationship developed. He likes to talk shit. I like to talk shit. It was all friendly and fun.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun to watch from the sidelines. And I only know you as a tournament player, or I only had known you previously as a tournament player. So it was especially interesting to see from the outside looking in because you had incredible results. So I just assumed you were going in there and holding your own. But when you describe it that way as, a grizzled old cash game player myself, there is nothing on earth more insufferable than somebody who's coming in for the first time, maybe taking a little bit of a shot, just splashing right into your environment and sun running through it, collecting all the pots.
That's been my experience with mix my whole life. I did it in San Diego too, for the most part, where I came up playing PLO cash when I was younger.
Yeah.
And then just that kind of disappeared. That wasn't an option for me. So I jumped into this high stakes game in San Diego and sun ran and kind of got the hang of it. And then did it again in Vegas for the most part and sun ran. Eventually came down to earth because that Bobby's Room game is tough. A little too tough for me. But,
everybody seems to speak of it that way. It has a certain allure to it, and I wonder how much of it do you think will be kept up now that Doyle's gone?
It's certainly a different thing. The experience of playing with a guy for me, the two guys that really, kind of gave me that shiver down my spine, whatever excitement, nervousness in poker, were playing with Doyle and Ivy. Mm-hmm. And Ivy still plays pretty regularly in that game, but Doyle, I don't know. I just sat down and it was I was just playing with a guy that I kind of idolized growing up, and watching on High Stakes Poker and all the World Series broadcasts. And yeah, it's just there's not really those sorts of characters in poker anymore. It's you got to give respect to the I don't want to name any names. I don't want to drag anyone in the high stakes and the limit scene, but it's not the same. It's harder to relate to a guy whoever studies the solvers and smashes live now,
right? Yeah.
Than it is to relate to a charismatic guy that came up kind of slinging his own and doing it, kind of in a charismatic way.
Yeah, I think to your point, nobody's untouchable anymore except for exactly Ivy. I think, and Doyle had that. Doyle had a bit of that legacy to him, right? Not that he was unapproachable, because I think that's part of what makes Ivy. But more so that he had spanned the decades, and you just knew that he came from this hustle culture in the 50s and 60s where there were guns on the table and lives on the line, and we'll just never ever be able to relate to that.
Doyle is his death kind of hits in a weird way because he really is one of the last of a dying breed of these guys that came up in the Texas road gambler days, where being sharp wasn't getting at. He was a fantastic poker player, don't get me wrong, but part of being sharp was understanding your edge in every situation, whether it was kind of a slimy edge or a legit edge. And that just doesn't really exist in the modern day world. And there's all those like leftover traits of his that were so funny and like interesting to watch when we were playing. He's got all these like tricks about like being able to palm a chip when he's like sliding out a stack. Like he'll count down a stack of 20 and slide it out and then like palm 2 off the side. Not that he was doing that when we were playing, but it was just like, one of these like leftover relics of those days. Yeah.
I do think that from an entertainment standpoint, that stuff is absolutely priceless, but there's also some value to it in him being so sharp as far as to like what to look out for too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he definitely turned me on to some stuff that I would have never imagined, and that still goes on in the modern day. People slashing chips, short the pot, all this sort of shit that if you're not really careful, the table really adds up in the long run. And
yeah, and our generation is so green to that, but the generations to come are maybe even tenfold.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I guarantee there's people that have like no clue how much is in the pot when they're playing a big hand, all this stuff, don't take the time to count it down, this sort of stuff. That's really like a leftover of an older generation. Yeah. I think he'll be sorely missed for sure. Did you ever play Big Bet with him as well, or just the mixed games? I mean, there's Big Bet in the mix, but no, I never played like a straight PLO game. But I mean, there was always Nolan and PLO and Nolan and Deuce and all the mixes.
Yeah, I know for a while they and I don't know if he actually played in this game or not, but I know like Ivy and Seaver and a few others were playing where it was just a Big Bet mix, no cap, and
the one that runs around Marcus.
Yeah.
I think that's okay to say. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it for sure is. I talk about Marcus a lot. He's honestly one of my favorite human beings in poker.
Yeah, I know. I've never played that game. That game's a little too big and with too many games. I've never taken the time to learn.
Yeah. Well, fuck, man. I appreciate you calling in. I'm glad we were able to hear a little bit of the humorous side of Doyle, and I appreciate you sharing your experience with him.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks a lot, man.
Love the cat, by the way. This guy's so regal.
He's Marley's cat, but I don't think she's getting him back.
Yep.
Yeah,
Marley, our cat now.
Yeah, he's mine now.
Well, yeah. Anyways, I enjoyed the podcast. Keep it up.
Thank you, man.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
See ya.
Yep. For anybody who hasn't seen Gordo and Doyle's exchanges throughout the years, it's worth Googling for sure. Good.
I feel like didn't Doyle comment on Gordo's picture of him?
Wait, what do you mean?
Didn't Gordo make a picture of?
Oh, yeah. He did a drawing. Fuck, how can I forget that? Man, where were you at 3 seconds ago?
I mean, I did it. I wasn't sure, and I didn't want to like...
Yeah, I totally forgot about that. But yeah, there was like legendary back and forth throughout one of the summers. I think it was like 2018.
Yeah, it had to be like 4 years ago, I think.
Yeah, where Gordo and him were just going back and forth on Twitter for days. It was incredible banter. I hope it resurfaces soon. We have another call in, the legendary voice of the WSOP, Lon McEachern.
Hey, how are you guys doing?
How you doing, Lon?
I'm a little sad today, but doing okay. Thank you.
Yeah, we were afraid you were ghosting us.
No, I saw your note last night, and you were going to send the note at noon. I didn't know we were starting at noon. Apologies. Sorry.
That's on me. That's definitely on me. Well, first of all, how have you been? How are you holding up with all this? I know that you probably have more experience than anybody else in the world at calling Doyle's action.
Well, Doyle, I'm doing fine. I mean, the whole thing with his passing, obviously sad. It's like a parent going for me. I've lost both my parents, and it's just they're like I mentioned in my tweet, they're always there. But it's something that, you know it's going to happen, expect it, it's supposed to happen. And then when it does, it, hits you like a ton of bricks. So I look back and really lucky. I didn't appreciate it at the time, but I called Doyle's last bracelet back in 2005. It was a long time ago. And he really wasn't playing a lot of tournament poker at that time. But then he heard Johnny Chan had won his 10th like a week or so before, and Doyle found it in to beat a very difficult field and win his 10th. So always been an honor to be in his presence and to be part of his world, and just to recognize what he was. I mean, he, for us in the TV business, he moved the needle. And early on, when we were just getting rolling, it was our job, we as a whole production crew, to introduce to this brand new audience, a new world of poker fans, who Doyle Brunson is and was. And it was an honor, and just, he moved the needle. And for us to try to, tell his whole story in a 1-hour show was impossible to do. And just glad to be, a small part of really what poker has become because of Doyle.
I can't believe it's all the way back to 2005 that he won his 10th. It doesn't feel like, in my mind's eye, that it was that long ago. Right?
Yeah, I agree. That's how present he is. I mean, when you think about it, Matt, I mean, he is, the beginning and end of Texas Hold'em for all of us. And I was thinking about this the other day, and it's like, as old as Doyle is, he said he always felt young playing poker, and but he has spanned generations. And you think of Doyle, and so I got to know him, and I got a little bit to know Dewey Tomko, one of the guys he ran with, and Amarillo, of course. And that just seems like so long ago. And then Doyle is jousting with all the new players, and the anachronism of Doyle getting involved in online poker when it first started hitting was really weird to see Doyle's room and Doyle playing online after, online poker was so new. And then to hear the stories that Ben Lamb was telling yesterday, Doyle was a tremendous golfing gambler. And so, I mean, just to have like the really old guys and then the newer guys also talking about their experience with Doyle. And he was so present for so many years. It just seemed like, the guy was always going to be here, and, that's never going to happen, I guess.
Yeah. He had a few sweats at number 11, right? And I feel like one wasn't all that long ago, unless my memory just doesn't serve me.
It was his last cash, actually, in the World Series. He had, I was there that night. I'd taken some pictures of him in the Rio, and his cowboy hat on. He had a blanket all around him, and I was taking pictures because it was Doyle. He announced his last tournament, which I think it didn't end up being, but he final tabled his last cash at the World Series of Poker. I think it was like 3 years ago.
Yeah,
so,
that's
he
right.
Was there.
That's right. I do recall that. What do you think, as far as the WSOP moving forward goes, with regard to memorializing Doyle in some sort of capacity? I mean, the best I understand the history of poker, he was really an integral part in even getting the World Series off the ground with, was it Jack Binion at the time, or Benny Binion? Jack Binion, right?
Yeah, Jack. Yeah, he absolutely was. I mean, they tried to get it going the year before it all started. Not far from me, I live in Northern California near the Nevada border, and they actually, the first kind of gathering happened in a hotel area on the river in Reno, and then they moved it to Las Vegas the following year. He was integral in everything, right to the end, to the Hall of Fame members, and to what's going to happen, and whatever Doyle wanted. You talk to Jack Epple and go, "What are we doing?" Well, we got to figure out what Doyle's doing. Is he coming in? I don't know if he's coming in. So, I mean, the energy changed when he was in the room. People shifted mountains to have Doyle involved. You just knew he was there. Every time he busted out in our early years of doing the World Series, it was just, standing ovation for Doyle. And it's really nice. I feel really good about the poker world and how they were able to honor him while he was still alive, while he was still playing poker. And he always was playing poker at his height, it seemed. He had a big say-so in a lot of stuff, I think, and a huge influence on the movers and shakers in the poker world, especially the World Series.
How would you feel, as somebody who's also been a staple of the World Series for as long as it's been televised, some sort of memorialization moving forward, maybe alongside the main event bracelet is, a Doyle Cup or something along those lines. It only seems right from my perspective.
Oh, well, you got the Chip Reese Trophy, and it's one of his best friends, for the PPC Poker Players Championship. So
also very fitting, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And so I would think something, and they're scrambling, I'm sure today, in
Right.
Caesar's offices to figure out exactly what to do. And you're always going to think it's not enough, but to have something that's going to be there year after year, I think is important because he's not going to be forgotten, but. For the people that are coming up and they want to, who was Chip Reese, and then there's somebody that would tell the story, and there's always something more to know, and you just have to do something. And Doyle wasn't just World Series, the poker, of course, every tour around that he wanted to be part of, he was an important part of it. So World Series should they will take the lead, I think, just because of the timing. But I wouldn't be surprised if other tours do the same thing as well.
Yeah, but I think he meant to the World Series what like Mike Sexton meant to the WPT, right? Like he's a founding father of it. It truly never gets off the ground without his influence and his dedication to it for decades.
Absolutely, there was that core of guys there, and they pretty much decided what was going to be happening, and once they saw their baby was off and running, they could let the leash off. But I don't think he ever, quite let go of the leash 100%.
Right.
But you're right, and I haven't talked to Taylor or Jack in the last 24 hours, but I would imagine, there's going to be something going on.
Do you? I know you've gotten to College Action a lot, so you probably kind of get to reminisce a bit whenever you had the pleasure of it. Are there any particular stories or little tidbits about Doyle that maybe you've shared on there before that you'd like to share again?
Yeah, actually some pictures are going around from when we introduced Vince Vaughn as the master of ceremonies for the World Series of Poker a couple of years ago. And so I got a call. It was a little before one of the main event days was going to start, and I got a call from I think it was Maury Escandani, our executive producer, and I'd heard they wanted me to in at a certain time. Okay, so then I get a call. I'm in the trailer back in the production area. It says come out to the feature table area. Okay, so I go out there, and Norman's already there along with Vince Vaughn and Phil Hellmuth and Doyle Brunson sitting at this table, and they want me to sit down and play like a 20-minute sit and go just to kind of introduce Vince Vaughn, and Doyle was sitting right next to me, right on my left, and I was scared shitless. I didn't know what to expect, and we started playing. And the blinds are up like every 3 hands or something like that, and I bluffed him off a hand. B, he had ace queen, which his story is an ace queen. Trump whatever Norman has bad has to say about ace queen. Pocket jacks, and he flopped an ace, and I flopped the jack, and I took all his chips with pocket jacks, and oh my God! But before that, Doyle, we're going around, and I raised him again. I was not going to let him get away with anything. I thought, here's my moment, and I. I raised and I looked down, and he looks at me, and he kind of nudges me with an elbow before he folds, and he flashes. He didn't show anybody else. He flashed 10 deuce and folded.
That's amazing.
So that's something, and you can see it. There's a few photos hanging around on Twitter today that just, oh gosh, my face is just in awe. And just thrilled to death to be sitting elbow to elbow with this guy. And it was something I'll never forget. It was fun.
Yeah, he really is truly so ingrained in the culture, in the game itself, in the community. I can't imagine a world where he's not completely immortalized moving forward. I mean, if nothing else, like the 7 deuce game has to turn into the 10 deuce game, right? Like this just has to become a staple.
Oh, yeah. There's people calling to throw tributes this way all summer long, playing 10 deuce. So
You're going to have to factor that when you're playing in the World Series this year. You're going to have to factor that 10 deuce is going to be in people's ranges now.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
It is going to be a race for for which hand has more money lost with it. Jack 4 over the last 6 months or 10 deuce over the World Series.
Oh, we can only the only good thing about this is maybe it'll get rid of the Jack 4 crap.
Yes,
Yeah.
there you go. Yes.
Yeah, I think that's very fair. It's probably time to put that one to bed.
Yeah. So it's like I said, when he won his 10th bracelet, the way our schedule worked, we were just hanging around the whole summer. We had certain events scheduled to record, which would later become one of our shows, edited shows later on. And then if something broke, we because the whole crew was there, kind of on standby, it was like, okay, we're dropping this event, this limit event somewhere, and Doyle, is at the final table, and so we're able to move on the fly, and so that wasn't an event that was on our radar. And then we saw the final table, and we saw Doyle, and it became history. So he was just that kind of guy. I mean, if he was around, the energy in the room changed. Everyone knew it. I've been lucky enough in my career to be around Willie Mays, Joe Montana, Wayne Gretzky, Muhammad Ali, and just Doyle had that same presence where when he walked in, it was just a little pause, everybody, and like kind of get a look at him and see what's going on, what's he going to say, and he never came off as the guy who was getting that kind of attention. I think he understood it. He understood his place. He wielded, as you mentioned, the whatever power he had for decisions and all like that. But he did it in such a gentle way. You really, when he spoke, you kind of had to lean in and hear what he was saying. But everybody knew what he was saying, and they snapped to whatever was going on in Doyle's mind. That's what was going to happen.
Yeah, I think he, Gordo kind of alluded to this. I think he is kind of the last of a dying breed when it comes to that generation, because the gap now is so wide, right? Like my generation barely knows what it's like for poker to be seedy, and certainly like Landon's generation only knows this game as a competitive mind sport similar to chess, where we've taken all of the seediness out of it, or at least a lot of the seediness out of it.
Most, yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's put it this way: the seediness has gotten a lot with
Yeah, it developed.
Yeah. Right. We're not
computerized seediness now.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. We're not in the back of saloons with pea shooters on the table threatening each other's lives any longer.
No, Doyle would talk about that often. He's more than one guy has been shot sitting next to him.
Yeah.
In the old rounder days.
Yeah.
And I just, those stories. Wow.
Yeah, I never had the pleasure of meeting him or playing with him, but I've probably played 1,000 hours with Bobby Baldwin, and like to me, he's my Doyle, right? Like the stories just never get old, and you can hear them a dozen times and still like pick up on a new detail that's just so outlandish. The life that the road gambler, so to speak, was living in the 60s and the 70s, while this game was kind of, being somewhat popularized and brought to the public eye. It was a different life, man, and we have so much to thank them for, because we just never make it to the Robert Vaconis and then to the whole card cams if it wasn't for them paving the way.
Oh, absolutely. And it's the brilliance of the early producers and the ones that we worked with as well. They understood that, and they saw that live documentary happening before them every year at Binion's and later on at the Rio, and they had a feel for the stories and for the characters that went along with it, and just I don't want to say romanticizing it, but kind of telling it the way it is, and people love to kind of go behind the curtain and see what's there. And that was a beauty where it was just everything coming together, of course, with Moneymaker and the whole cards, cams and all the money in because of the fields, and then the stories behind these guys. And, every poker story you've ever heard from any poker player. I'm sure Doyle and his buddies have lived it, and so that was the beauty, because this was a Hollywood script that was writing itself every year, and that just caught everyone by surprise and caught their imagination. And obviously it's changed through the years, but he's obviously the lead dog and all of that. And I was wondering, I'd throw this question back at you, is there anybody in the current generation, it probably have to be a little older generation, who would be like a Doyle at this point, playing the big cash games, playing the golf? I don't know all of those players in that world. The only one that came to mind for me is Ben Lamb. He played a lot with Doyle, played a lot of golf, and big money and all like that. I mean, are those kind of guys still around, or new guys coming in who feel that?
For me, it was like Mike Sexton's the first person who comes to mind, who we sadly lost a couple of years ago, and that one hit a little bit harder to me because I knew Mike personally, maybe not extremely well, but I knew him. And you just get a touch of greatness whenever you're in the presence of these guys, because they have lived such a long life and they do have so much experience. I think Ben's a great example of the embodiment of Doyle. Whenever you're talking about somebody who just gets gambling, but he's so young still, right? By comparison, that it's difficult to know what the next 30 or 40 years are going to look like for him. I guess as far as people who have been around the game a longer period of time, the 30, 40, 50 year mark, you look to guys like Negreanu and Hellmuth and even Ivy to a certain degree. It's tough to equate them to Doyle, not because they're not, great gamblers and, a part of the lifestyle and everything else, but more so because they were just, they were the young generation when he was the big dog, and they received so much fanfare and publicity and benefits from the TV limelight that it's a different type of grit that Doyle brought to the table, and I don't know that anybody's ever going to be able to replicate that now.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he came from the real world, and there's a lot of the new guys, they're playing the online poker version, and the games, you still see stories about big, poker games for some reason getting busted, certain states and all. But it's not the same. I mean, they were really, creating a path that nobody had trod on before. And I'm not sure that could happen, or it'd be very rare if it could happen again in that same sense. I think there's going to be different stories and different dramas and different personalities that are going to stand out and going to create great stories. But man, there's no other Babe Ruth, and
that was the analogy I was going to use too. Doyle, I don't think. He's our Babe Ruth. He's our, whoever you want to talk about that's synonymous with kind of moving a sport ahead. It's kind of funny. At the beginning of the sport, I mean, Babe Ruth wasn't even there at the beginning of baseball, and look how far it's come. And same thing with boxing and football still kind of, but those guys, there's nobody who's really been there from the get-go like Doyle, I think. Yeah, I think that's a really key point to hone in on, that not only was he there at the beginning, but he was ever present at the end too. And that's probably the most remarkable part. It wasn't like he was shying away from media attention in his waning years. Quite the opposite, right? We're going to be lucky enough to get a biopic, a documentary, an audiobook, these things that are, otherwise just lost in his legacy if he's not cooperative to tell these stories on the record. Exactly. And I know that Jamie Kerstetter told me last summer that she had been spending time with him to do such a documentary. I'm not sure where it was going to end up or not, but she was spending time with Doyle and just felt blessed that she was able to spend that time with him. And I hope we get to hear some of the stories that he didn't maybe want to tell publicly so much. About those early Rounders days, and that hope somewhere there's a tell-our
a truthful one somewhere. Yeah. Dewey Tomko might have some too. Yeah.
Yeah, I was hoping that we could get Phil and Dewey on here. I think they're hosting something here shortly thereafter, so I encourage everybody to go check it out. Dewey's actually from the Pittsburgh area. I met him in Texas.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I met him in Texas maybe 5 years ago. He's from like not very far away from where Brian and I grew up, so a little bit of hometown ties there. Mm-hmm. Big Al also, he's from Wilkinsburg.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I'm not sure if you know who Big Al is or not, Lon, but he's a legendary gambler. He runs around in that Baldwin circle. He's around the same age and just a legendary gambler. A lot of wild stories around Big Al. But he made the final table of the $1 million event with Perkins a few years back.
Oh, right. Okay. What did Josh Aria say here? What was that? Is my internet as bad as it looks when I?
Oh yeah, it's awful, but that's okay. We hear you crystal clear.
Yeah, the voice is coming in good, just not the video.
We'll keep Josh's tweet up there. I'm going to see him next week. Play golf with him next week. What is it? Probably. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what's nice is that the guys of today have a very good idea of who Doyle is and what he has brought to the game. So it's nice. There, like I mentioned, when the applause that we'd seen for Doyle, it's heartfelt and people understand what he is to the game. And that's really nice, even for today's players.
Yeah, I agree. I'm looking forward to hearing more of the stories kind of come out from Bobby's room, from the golf course, as more and more people will start to share. Really appreciate you stopping here.
Did you see the one about his Escalade?
Yes. Oh yeah. Where he had quote unquote retired from poker and then went back to Bobby's room for 60 days straight, only to buy an Escalade and then thank all the players.
He tweeted a picture of it. It was great.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, man, the guy kept up with the times because that's some shit that we would do.
Right.
There was
sorry about my internet. I don't know what's going on.
Don't sweat it.
It's good.
As long as we hear you, you're good. Are you going to be back out here for the series?
I've got a little tournament called the Tournament of the Champions to play in on
the
30th.
That's right. You are a ring winner, aren't you?
Yes, you guys are very nice to me this year, so I appreciate that. So yeah, if you have any advice on that, you can DM me on how to approach a tournament where everyone is winners.
Sure.
I've never played one of those.
That'll be really easy. We're going to have a simple balanced range line. You're going to play aces and 10 deuce.
We got it.
It's an easy game,
nice. I'll do it.
Well, looking forward to seeing you this summer. I hope to either be at a final table that you call or maybe join you in the booth at some point.
Yep.
Love to. That'd be fantastic. Hope so. Thank you very much for including me and what is a somber day, but a wonderful day to remember as well.
Yeah, thanks for the stories, Lon.
Thanks, you.
All right, guys. Take care. Bye, guys.
You too. I want to get out of here on a final story that Ben Lamb shared yesterday. I think that this is kind of like what I was hopeful to hear some of. Ben said that I texted him and I said, "You want to come on and talk a little bit about Doyle?" He goes, "I think I shot my shot with that tweet." That's pretty much all I got, but it's worth reading in my opinion because it's a really great story. So Ben tweeted, Doyle had a 64-degree wedge that had reworked the grooves to be less than legal. Something everyone used back in the day. He called it his old groovy. Heard legends of this wedge spinning backwards out or downhill lies in the rough. He would destroy a ball in one pitch shot. About 10 years ago, he was telling me about it, and I asked him if he played golf anymore. He said, "No, not really." I then asked him if I could have it. Told him I would give old Groovy a good home. He said, "Sure." Knowing how forgetful poker players can be, I threw him 3 black chips. He said, No, it's yours for free. I said, "No, this is for the wedge. Every time I see you and you haven't given me the wedge, you have to give me 1 black chip back." He laughed and said, "I'll bring it tomorrow." We were playing again the next day, so I assumed I would get it then. He forgot it. We all laughed, and I needled him as I collected my first black chip. He forgot it about 15 more times after that. I really wasn't wanting the black chips. I wanted old Groovy. During the next couple of years, it was probably about $4K total that I had collected.
Jesus.
I'd be at dinner at Bellagio and just swing by the poker room to see if he was there to collect another black chip. He would get so tilted, it was great. One day, he brought in 3 to 4 other clubs, including his prize putter. He had lost Old Groovy. Couldn't find it. I finally let him buy out of the deal, but I would give all those black chips back for that wedge. And I think that story like really does embody what the gambling culture is like, and why Lon kind of leaned on Ben as an example of somebody who is our generation's version of Doyle to some degree, right? Like, it didn't start off as anything other than a generous gift. And then it turns into Ben kind of finding like an edge here where Doyle paid $10K for not giving him a gift.
You know, I wouldn't have realized that Bencb was our generation's Doyle until we were at a party and he was walking up to people and Bencb was so drunk. You just see his red lips. He's drank at least 3 bottles and he's like, I'll play you with one arm behind my back, left-handed. On 1 foot or something like that for $5,000. And he's at pool.
Okay.
And he's just walking around offering it to everybody. And it was like, yo, this man's a hustler.
Yeah, he's not as drunk as you think, and he's better at pool than you
yes,
think.
Exactly.
Oh yeah, that I say this hesitantly, but I hope I'm around after Bencb so I can memorialize him properly. There are going to be some fantastic stories that emerge, I'm sure.
I couldn't imagine all these stories that Doyle really does have, like coming up through Texas and stuff.
I'm sure we'll only hear like 20% of them.
We're not going to hear that many. Like, I think about it, like I have a lot, and like because I came up through home games, and like they weren't as seedy as back then.
No,
and they were still seedy.
Yeah.
So it's like
you can only imagine.
I can only imagine how far back those stories go. Like how good. My God.
Yeah. Well, that's going to do it for us. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I know that all of the members were looking forward to a giveaway. Obviously, we had to push that back with the passing of Doyle. So we will be giving away an MTT Academy seat tomorrow. In order to qualify, all you have to do is be here for the show and be a member to the YouTube site. If you're interested in joining, you can click the join button next to the Solve4Why logo or click the link in the description below. We'll be doing a sort of contest, trivia based tomorrow to give away that seat. Also, if you haven't already, a new episode of Poker Out Loud is up on our site. You can check that out at solve4why.io. And finally, we do have 1 seat remaining to the MTT Academy. You can head over to academy.solve4why.io if you're interested in signing up. Go ahead and click the banner above for more information. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Really appreciate you guys supporting us during this memorial for Doyle. Very sad day for the poker world, and we send our best to Todd, Pam, and the rest of the family. We'll be back tomorrow, noon Pacific. We'll see you guys then.
Later.
Well, I related my gambling, learning to play poker just on a scale, just like you were going to school. I started out playing in small games, which would kind of be the equivalent of going to grade school. And then I graduated up to a little bit bigger game, and then I finally began to decide to be a professional. I traveled around the country, and then finally when you get in graduate school, you go to Vegas and you're ready to take the world on.